We will now proceed to Mr. Hallen for 5 minutes. Mr. Hallen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Minister, you today had said that you found out in early spring about the deportations, and that's about the same time as when the CBC article came out. Also, you tweeted out at the end of May, and after visiting the students along with our leader, like many of my colleagues, the first question that comes to mind to them and us is, what took you so long? What happened between March and May?
Well, as I explained to Mr. Uppel during his questioning, we needed to verify the accuracy of the reports. In fact, I did interviews with certain community media outlets in the days after becoming aware, because we had no indication, for example, there were 700 people.
What's the department doing between that time, though?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
What were the steps the department was taking in between that time, not what you did with the media?
Certainly. So when we connected with CBSA, after we became aware of the media reports.
This was in March?
This would have been probably in the second half of March this process would have started. And look, we can, after I give it maybe a description, I'm happy to, for a more technical answer to share with officials. But we sought to identify how many people were impacted. We had no indication that there were 700 people, and we wanted to dig in to figure out why the discrepancy. I still don't know where the 700 figure came from. After we started looking at the number of scenarios, we came to understand there was a significant number of applications that were tied to a very similar pattern. Nearly 1,000, in fact, had been refused entry on the basis of fraudulent letters of acceptance. The remaining, there was a few hundred others that actually were admitted, some of whom were genuine students who intended to study. And of that cohort, CBSA has so far referred 87 to the IRB, and then rather 82. A remaining 57 have actually gone through that process. So it's largely been understanding what is the situation that these students are dealing with, what is the pattern underlying the issuance of fraudulent acceptance letters that led to them being admitted to Canada, and then developing the process to allow them to come through Canada and remain here legally.
It was a 2-month process that led to that. Is that what you're saying? Before you tweeted out?
It would have, look, I don't know the exact number of date. It would have been a couple of, probably a couple of months to understand the fact pattern and develop
the reason why I
the
say
shape
it's
of the program.
important is because today you're saying that 8 have been deported, and in your press conference today, you had mentioned that many had left voluntarily.
Not many, 10 people.
So 10 people have left voluntarily. It's still 10 people whose families are affected by this, on top of the other 8.
So just to be clear,
but let me just get to my question.
Well, there's just one inaccuracy, and if I need to extend by 20 seconds, people who left voluntarily are not inadmissible to Canada. They did not complete the IRB process. They've not been found to be deported.
Because they were given that letter, it was almost like you are a criminal, you got to leave.
And those
voluntarily means that they were given something by your department in order for them to leave their life here where they built all those roots and leave. The reason why I'm saying this is because it took you 2 months. It took 2 months to get to that point. That's 18 different families that you've already identified that could have been saved earlier, that could have stayed here and not spent that much money, and that had to that got deported or voluntarily left. That's why I'm saying that. It took you 2 months to send out a tweet that maybe we'll work on this. So I just want you to know that the impact that had on you not making any action for those 2 months. And it's interesting because the tweet came out the day after the Conservatives had written a public letter to you. So I just want to know, why would it have taken so long for you to even just respond to that?
So I had spoken publicly before the tweet you're referring to in May about the action that we were looking at taking. But as I mentioned in my response to Mr. Uppel's questions, there is serious potential criminality that's underlying a scheme that has led to people being admitted, and we need to watch very carefully. We need to investigate when we see a pattern of hundreds or potentially in excess of 1,000 applications that were made on the basis of fraudulent documents to make sure that we are protecting the integrity of the system and not compromising investigations into how these fraud rings can come to exist in the first place. With enormous respect, as you know I have for you, given our conversations before, sometimes when you're developing new programs that are designed to allow a person to come to and remain in Canada and overcome investigations of fraud, it can take a matter of weeks to do this. This is not something that was years in the making. We moved quickly to identify the problem.
That since you became the minister, there was never a pattern that your department picked up on, or that you might have picked up on, or any colleges that came to you? Were there any indications from anyone about any kind of pattern, including anyone coming to you to say this is happening?
We know there are widespread attempts to defraud Canada's
But
immigration
since when?
system.
When did you find that out and what did you do?
Mr. Hallen, your time is up.